John, welcome to the show. It's an absolute
Thank you.
pleasure to talk to you today. I want to start from your coach history. You got into it absolutely by accident, but then, and please don't be humble. Um, I I know that's a problem you have, a good problem
Yeah,
you have,
yeah,
but don't be humble. Tell
yeah,
us all the things.
yeah, yeah.
Give us the coaching history and where you got
Hmm.
to and the great athletes that you had the opportunity to work with.
No, it was. I mean, one, it was a real privilege to be able to coach. You get to work with student athletes and really help them develop. Uh, it started off at when I was in undergrad at Old Dominion University. I was on the rowing club. Uh, Kind of felt like I became president of the club by default. The but The kids, the high school kids, that one of those summers needed some help. They already had a coach, a Navy captain, who was doing a lot of work, but also he was having some external challenges, and so they needed help. And you know, me stand it's probably more a function of me standing there, warm body, you're it.
Right.
We got to start there, and then coaching a little bit at Old Dominion University, graduated. Our coach from the year previous when I was there moved on. And so I was coaching the guys. And Now another coach came in a year later, Bill Zach. I think he was pretty instrumental in me figuring out what it was to be a professional coach.
Mm.
He was very supportive of the idea of being a student of coaching. In fact, I remember one time I was reading a book in the van, and one of the athletes, it was at the end of the season, one of the athletes asked me, and then paraphrasing, but they were just like, "Why are you doing this? The season's over." And Bill turns around and goes, "Well, John's trying to be a better person. What are you doing?" And I was like, "I'm just going to read my book." But then I went to South Carolina, got my master's degree. There is rowing in South Carolina, by the way, for those folks, but I didn't do anything there while I was getting my master's. But I went to San Diego State to get my
PhD.
PhD in geography. And probably 1 week into being on campus, I was, of course,
Just
t-shirts
standing
and
there.
rowing are
Just
a
standing
requisite.
there.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, just kind of wandered
Just
around
standing
campus.
there.
I think I was just exploring, but
Right.
everybody wears a rowing T-shirt. In fact, in rowing, there's an old tradition that if you win the event, you get the other team's shirts, jerseys, their unis, their kit.
I love that.
In fact, if you watch the Harvard Yale race, the men still do that. They at the end of the race they exchange. Whomever the winner is gets the other team's tank top or jersey, and so
Do they put them on?
no, it's a trophy. Now, once you get away from the race, sometimes you'll go to practice. And in fact, at one point when I was coaching with the athletic director, kind of mentioned that he saw some of our athletes wearing other teams' T-shirts, and I'm like, well, they won those.
Right. Right. You know what? I love that.
And
It's almost like the handshake at the end of
mhm.
tennis, right? I mean,
Oh
sure,
yeah,
it's a trophy and there's an ego aspect to it, but it's also like, we're civil and, I'm
yep.
also showcasing them, but yeah, we also won this.
Yeah, totally. So that's what got me back into coaching in San Diego. And in Mission Bay, it's fantastic. There's tons of rowing, tons of great organizations, and really had, I think, a fantastic 5-year run, practically coaching in some way, shape, or form multiple organizations, or riding around in launches with other coaches. I mean, it really was a unique environment to be able to like experiment, learn, and be able to grow there. And that's where it kind of took off for me, especially coaching the master women in San Diego. I had a really great core nucleus of women that were really ranging from like, I think about 20 to north of 60 in terms of age ranges,
Oh, wow.
and highly
In the same
successful.
team?
Pardon?
In the same team?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Oh,
Master
wow.
women, yeah. Masters is pretty much, it's Most of them are post college, but there were a couple of women that were in community college and they didn't have an opportunity, or they were at another, an opportunity. They hadn't gone to uni yet.
Oh,
And
wow.
so they were just starting to row. But most of them were probably in the age range. I'm going to put it in 28 to 38.
Right.
Yeah, it was fascinating. I learned a ton. I had the privilege of coaching them. They were ultimately, I think, the year that I got the head coaching job at Nova Southeastern, a couple months after I left, they went with the entire rowing club to Masters Nationals, and the rowing
Oh,
club,
wow.
through a totality of points, came home with the national championship.
Oh, wow.
And the women were a significant contributor to that.
Amazing.
I was really, really proud of them. I wasn't coaching them at the point, but it's just a couple months on, and so I don't know how to take credit for it, and I have a hard time taking credit. But at
Well,
the same time,
that just
my
means you're a good
pride
manager.
was really top shelf. And then I ended up at Nova Southeastern University. Well, not ended up. I got the job there and started the program. They didn't have a rowing shell. They didn't have an athlete. They didn't have, we knew where we were going to row, and that was it. And we built the program up, and across the course of the 8 years that we were there, I was really fortunate to work with a tremendous number of amazing women. And they went to the national championship 7 out of 8 years. While we were there, the women's 4 won the national championship in 2009. We won several conference championships. It was a really special time with a bunch of really special people. I the probably the one of the defining moments of that first year that we started the program was we went to Rollins College up in Winter Park, Florida.
Yep. I taught at Rollins College, actually.
Oh, okay. Great college. And by the way, Winter Park's beautiful.
Yes.
We're Lake Maitland, if I remember correctly. We were racing, but it was our first year. And so in rowing, first year rowers are considered novices. And if everybody in the boat is a first year rower, they don't have to be a freshman, just a first year rower.
Right.
They're a novice. Well, and a couple of weeks before we went, the University of Miami coach at the time had spoken to me. She pulled me aside. She was a friend of mine, is a friend of mine. She said to me, you really should race up. You should race against the other varsity crews in the state because your boat's faster than I think you think it is. And I was like, I had mad respect for this coach. So, I was going to take that advice and run with it. And I was like, okay. Went back to the women and I was like, hey, we're going to try something in our next regatta when we go to Rollins. We're going to race because we can qualify for the novices because we're all novice rowers, first year program, first year university, everything. We're going to race the novice, but we're also going to try our hand at the varsity entry as well. And so we doubled up. Right. So in the novice race, solid. It was great win.
Nice.
The varsity race, and by the way, for the listeners and the viewers, like rowing the race course is 2,000 meters long. Typically you'll see this gathering of coaches at the finish line. And, we have no idea what's happening in the first 2/3 of the race. Cause we can't even we're just like, well, it looks like boats have started. There's some splashing.
Right.
Who knows?
And for our American listeners, 2,000 meters is like a 10-minute run, right? If you're not fit.
Yeah, I would call it about almost a mile and a half,
right.
Give or take. Yeah, right. But a little shy than a mile and a half. But yeah, I have to. It's funny. I always have to switch between worlds of metric and English measurements. It's a hike. It takes usually an average women's crew. A really top level women's crew will do it in 6 minutes and 15, 6 minutes and 20. At the NCAAs, I've seen 6 minutes and 11 seconds. But that's your best collegiate university crew. But we're all standing at the finish line watching this race come down. And here it comes, and I'm watching, and I'm like, oh, it looks like we're in it. I think we're doing okay. And that's the first half of the race. I'm just like, it, who knows? It's like watching a marathon. You just see
Right,
people.
right, right.
But it suddenly it starts to come into view that I'm like, oh my gosh, we're like in it, in it. And it was 4 boats across. And if I remember right, it was Jacksonville University, Barry University, Rollins College, and us, and just 4 across. Just everybody's going for the finish line, and you're just watching this crew, and I'm watching them, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, like we're I was just pleasantly, well, no, I was ecstatic that we were competitive. Like I was excited that we were in it, and we were, we're rowing, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like it was just bow ball to bow ball. You saw all 4 boats just coming towards the finish line, and literally they hit the finish line. There's a horn at the finish line. All you hear is beep, 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 beep. And I'm like, I was like, I don't know what happened. I don't know,
happened?
At that particular moment in time, I was like, all I know is we did a outstanding job. So, they order, they rank order the medals at the end of the regatta. The women go up and get their novice medals, which is great. And then they get down, and the varsity, of course, is the last race they announce in terms of the winners, and everybody's down there at the front of the boathouse. And then they go through the winners. Okay, 3rd place, 2nd place, 1st place, Nova Southeastern University. So the women go with their novice medals on and go get their varsity medals.
What a moment.
It was Disney. It was a Disney movie.
I can feel the goosebumps. That is,
and I looked around, and everybody was like, "Wait, what?" Like literally,
what
you just saw this kind of like the novice won the part, and I was like,
I love that.
We just set a standard that we're going to have to really live up
to. You can't invent this. This is just crazy. So okay,
it was a great year.
Let me. Oh my God! You could only hope to experience moments like that. You learned a lot becoming a coach.
Mm-hmm.
What were your breaking points where you're like, oh, that's super interesting. Like, this is something I need to do. This is something I didn't know. This is something I've now learned, and it was fundamentally new for you and made you change the way that you behaved with yourself, with others. What did you learn through that coaching career?
2 things immediately come to mind. One, and I want to say this one before I forget it, it actually originated from one of the women that was in that first boat. So Nikki Faluca, she became everything in the 40s. She was a swimmer in high school, came to Nova Southeastern University from New York, was not recruited. She walked onto the team. I remember distinctly when she walked up to me at orientation, said, "Coach, I'm going to come row." And it wasn't, if I recall correctly, it wasn't, "I want to come row." I'm coming. I'm going to come row.
You know what? I just love it when people have a sense of confidence, but not arrogant.
No,
and it's that, right? I'm coming to row.
A ton of the women that we have, they really understood that it was a team sport, and it was all 9 women in the boat, or all 5 women in the 4. Ironically, you call it a 4, but there's a 5th, the coxswain. Coxswains need more respect. They're the drivers of the boat. They're the person who's, and by the way, they don't shout "row, row, row." Okay, for anybody who has that, I can tell you right now. But Cheyenne Posky, who was our coxswain that first, or the first 4 years of the program, she will happily correct you, and in no uncertain terms, by the way. So Nikki, one day after she graduated, we were sitting there talking, and she had become somebody involved in rowing, had done coaching, definitely still absolutely part of her life. She's an immense alumni. But we were talking about novices, and for some reason I had expressed some level of frustration, and she turned to me and goes, "Coach, they don't know what they don't know." And I literally was like stunned silence. And I'm just like, whoa. And I had to go back and realize it and kind of rewind the tape, because when I was in San Diego, I taught a lot of rowing classes, which actually was a huge amount of help, for me when I started coaching at the university level, coaching uni students, because, I think I developed a methodology, and I won't even call it methodology. I developed an approach to coaching that involved understanding how to teach a real wide, diverse audience. Because, when you're teaching rowing classes, you had, and much to like the master women that I would coach at San Diego, you have anybody from 18 to, and rowing's a great sport for all life. So I had athletes that were 60. I even had a couple athletes that were 70 years old. And also all of these crazy backgrounds. I had women that were former basketball players, women that had never rowed before, women who were, or men and women that were, in the band, but had never done in their mind, a sport. It was great trying to figure out how to communicate with them, what's going to work, also just everybody's got a different communication style. And so, when Nikki said that, I had to kind of check myself and go, oh, okay, I need to reset when I'm talking to novices and when I'm talking to people who don't know, and also people who don't know what they don't know. And to go, okay, you have to find that lowest common denominator for a team. You have to find that lowest common denominator for the individual. You have to be able to relate to them. You have to start to peel away the layers of the onion in terms of that educational process. And this applies to the classroom, this applies to coaching, this applies to life, and like here at Northern Arizona University, like we have a huge population of first gen students. These first gen students may not know something that we take for granted, that we assume everyone knows, and we can't make that assumption with anybody.
Yes.
And so when Nikki said that, I just was like, that was a huge check on my part. And then another element, it's like, okay, they don't know what they don't know, but another element of
and by the way, this is what they call expert bias, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. We forget what it means to be a rookie.
Yeah.
We forget what it is like on that first day in anything, the first day on the job, first day in the classroom, first day at, camp, first day, whatever. We, the experts, have to be way more empathetic. And we have to we can't even assume they're going to meet us halfway. We have to go 100% over to the other side and go, okay, tell me if you already know this, but I'm going to take it all the way down to zero and start here and assume they don't know anything. And now the other piece of that process was me in the self-discovery of learning how to teach. And, and I would just say learning how to teach, not learning how to coach, but learning how to communicate information so that the individual, one, understands, two, is able to start applying, and three, you give them a process that allows them to get the small wins, move forward successfully, has the space to fail, and understands that failure is just a data point. It's not you don't want to set expectations too high, but you do want to challenge them. You do, but all of this was occurring to me, throughout my
let me just stop you there.
career.
This is true. This is true for coaching. This is
Mm-hmm.
true for parenting. This
Mm-hmm.
is true in the corporate environment of quote unquote managing, leading.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is a fundamental truth
Yes.
of how to help people get from point A to point B. I just want to, you're saying these things, but they're so incredibly important and interesting. I just want to let the audience absorb this for a second and understand how applicable everything you're saying is. And let me just repeat it, right? You said small wins, right? That reinforces confidence, reinforces this idea that you can make small steps. But then you said it's okay to fail. Yes. And that failure, you're teaching them that it's just a lesson on their way to their next success or their next failure, which is yet another lesson, which is okay. And then you're saying something also incredibly important, which I feel like sometimes in America we forget. You need to also be challenged, right? Like these participation trophies. No, it's okay to say that you failed and this is the lesson to learn. And then, this was a challenging thing that you achieved something. And even if you didn't get the perfect score, you achieved a lot.
Oh, absolutely.
It's such an important message. So I'll tell you a short story.
Mm-hmm.
One of my partners, he bombed a sales meeting, and he was obviously upset.
Mm-hmm.
And I called him up maybe a couple hours later, and I said, "That was amazing. That was a great job." And he was in shock. So like, no, we completely bombed it, and the guy's not interested, and blah blah blah. And I said, yes, but look at what you learned,
Mm-hmm.
and you've taken this first step, and look at all the insights you have, and look at what path this has set you on.
Yeah.
And I kind of changed the way he looked at it, and he came out from that discussion with this hugely positive perspective. And now he's on this new journey. And I said, look, you're not a sales guy. This was your first sales meeting. You bombed it, but now you have all these learnings and insights,
Mm-hmm.
and it's such a wonderful thing.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to share my appreciation of you kind of sharing these incredible points. So you talked about communication style and the common denominator, but it also matters the kind of background of
Mm-hmm.
the person, where they come from.
Mm-hmm.
What are the different communication styles that you have used as a
Mm-hmm.
coach, as a mentor,
Yeah.
as a professor, in
Yeah.
order to really connect and empathize?
I think I approach it with like almost a mix of media and see what, and I hate to say it, like, let's throw it at the wall and see what sticks.
You're fishing a
But
little bit, yeah.
like on day one, like, it's me, it's audio, it's text, it's imagery, it's creating analogies. And so, like, I can be the sage on the stage, but I can tell you right now, that actually is probably the least effective thing, in terms of getting them to engage. One of the things is getting them to talk to each other, and for them to, I love it when a student can teach a student, and because that student who's teaching it now is reinforcing it for themselves,
Yes.
and they're having to process and how to do that. So I can, do an initial conversation, have them have a second conversation. I can also, with the, in the Department of Small Wins, it's like, okay, we're going to do, at the end of this particular class or this particular week, we're going to do a 5 really low stakes 5-question quiz. Or I will ask the athletes, so what did you learn today? How do you feel about what you got today? And feel, like, that feel question, like, it really gets them to dig in and go, okay, how do I feel? And again, this has been, kind of a journey and process. So like, when I first started coaching, I was horrible.
Hold on.
I was bad.
Why, how do you feel?
Yeah.
I mean, we're glossing over something incredibly important.
Mm-hmm.
Why is that important exercise for the athletes?
I think it really gets them to analyze and to think about, okay, what is my body and my mind saying to me? Because we can go do a workout. And I think that's why a lot of people, like, don't make progress, is they don't do the analysis, or they're just assuming that if I run, a mile on the treadmill, whatever, where versus it's like, okay, how'd you do yesterday? Did you do today? How did yesterday feel? How did today feel? Did you make any sort of mechanical improvement between that? Did you make any sort of mental strength improvement between that? And for them, when you talk about feelings, that they're like, yeah, when I was like really sitting on that and really feeling like I was pushing against the oar, I felt this. And now they know what it's supposed to feel like tomorrow. And this, and the same thing is in the classroom, or, just working with students or with kids or with families or with corporations, is what was yesterday? How did you do? How'd you feel? What did we accomplish? What went wrong? Let's talk about it. How did we do
This
today?
sounds crazy. You're almost advocating that even in the employment environment, you can.
Yeah.
Okay,
Oh,
so this
I
sounds.
think, well, we're human.
Okay, but hold on.
and
Any boss would be like,
emotions.
let's not talk about emotions, right? Let's, like, this is where.
I think people are losing percentages of potential and percentages gains when we don't take a moment to recognize that, how do we feel about that? Because the thing is, it also allows us, like, if we felt good about it, let's celebrate.
Right.
If we felt uncomfortable about it, what was uncomfortable? If we had created an uncomfortable environment, well, hey, coach, leader, captain of the ship, whatever, that's a you problem. That's not the sailor's problem. That's not the employee's problem. That, if we're creating a negative environment that makes them feel like they can't, then that's a leader problem.
So in the business environment, it's difficult. I think a lot of people fail on this because employees, team, they don't want to show that they have an issue or that they're weak or that they're unhappy, because you're almost taught to, exude the strength. And you don't want to, then the boss is going to come and say, oh, what's your problem? Why aren't you performing? Like, you're almost pulling attention to yourself. So everybody's happy all the time. Is there a trick to it? Is there a way to build, and I'm guessing here that there's a cultural thing you can do to make this work? What's the approach? How do you make this difficult thing feasible?
I think the first thing is getting to know them. We love talking about ourselves. Like here, I tell you right now, like me and you, we could be at 10 o'clock I'm on the West Coast time. So we could be at 11 o'clock today and I'd still be happy to talk about myself. But
everybody,
I think it's key that we actively listen to our teammates, to our employees, to our families. And active listening is putting the pen down, turning away from the keyboard, facing the individual, and having, and I'm not talking about hours on conversations. I'm talking about the 2 minutes of either you're coaching the individual, you're helping to support the individual, you're learning about the individual. And so when, to start that trust, they have to believe we as leaders care, and not the fake care, like, oh, hey, great to see you today. Okay, that's fake care in my mind. If you're honestly great to see them, great. Tell them it's great to see them, but keep going. How are you doing today, right now? How are you doing right now? How's your cat? Hey, how was that Hawaiian pizza you had last night? You told me on Friday you were going on a hike. How'd it go? Like, where'd you go? It got rained out. Oh, that stinks. But what else did you do? But what's that? 30 seconds, 1 minute, like one of my teammates that's on my team at here at university at Northern Arizona. Like, I uncovered the fact that literally we love the same wine brand, the same winery, because we had a conversation.
Right.
Like, and I can tell you this is not a popular winery. It's Mazzacco Wines out in Sonoma, California. Like, the fact that they even knew the name blew my mind.
Right.
And they're like, oh, I love that winery. I'm like, my wife, literally, we just opened a bottle. Oh my gosh, but that's that human connection.
It is.
And now we can build on that. And they can, and also, like, it doesn't hurt for me to share where I mess up.
Right.
That's
such an important point.
I'm going to fail. And if they know that I have a relationship with them, if they know that it's okay to try something, and being a calculated risk.
Right.
Okay. But we let that happen. We want them to try to push the envelope a little bit.
Right.
And we want them to explore, to innovate, to try something different. Because
hold on, I have to stop you on that.
Yeah.
It's such an important point, because I think a lot of people in a lot of environments, they try to showcase themselves as perfect.
Yeah. No.
And that does the opposite of what you want it to do.
Yeah.
Because people are like, you're not perfect. So actually that's creating a negative perception.
Yep.
But if you just share honestly and humbly, like, I fucked up.
Yeah.
I learned from this. Here's what I learned. You're a real person now.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, here, since we were talking about rowing, here's now in hindsight, funny, but really happened. I got the regatta dates wrong. We literally scheduled a race with the university on the wrong weekend when they were expecting us on a like one of the other bookend weekends. I don't remember which. We get about 2 weeks out. I've made hotel reservations. I've reserved the bus. It's, everything is done. And something just tickled in the back of my head. And I called them up and I said, hey, we're coming on X. And they're like, we're racing on Y. And I was like, And so I had to go back to my team and go, hey, I really messed up. But I told them, I literally owned it. Like, I was the one that, I'm the head coach. That's a me problem. Even though maybe my assistant coach at the time might have had a whole bunch of involvement in helping me make that arrangement. None of us realized how apparently we need to look at calendars better. But the thing is like, I told them, I was like, guys, I messed up. Now, did we get it to work? Did we fix a couple things? Sure.
Right.
But it wasn't what it was supposed to be. And we weren't necessarily racing the way it was supposed to be, who and what and when. Right. But, what am I going to do other than tell them, hey, I messed up? But at the same time, it opens the door for the athletes to go, oh, it's okay to come to me and say I messed up.
Right. That's right.
Now, there are still standards. Okay. And so, we have to hold everybody to a standard, but, if someone messes up, and I've learned this, and there was another case where I think I messed up big time in learning this process, is we have to give them a little bit of grace. And we have to go, what, they tried something or they did something and they messed up, but I need to understand that, okay, there's a consequence, but can we learn from that? And, and I could probably review, a couple of times where I, as a leader, messed up doing that. And I think now if I was to approach the same situation, I would handle it, I would say very, very differently, knowing that it's like, hey, we have to know. And again, it's also going back to that, hey, you were a coordinator at some point. You were an assistant director at some point. You were a brand new employee at some point. You were a brand new team member at some point. Right. Anytime we encounter this where you might be like literally holding your head in your hand, you're like, I can't believe they did that.
Yeah, that's right.
Go way back.
So, I mean, if I'm the leader, right?
Yeah.
I can put that culture forth. But as an employee, if I have the culture of admitting my fault, but others don't, is that dangerous? Does that put me in a disadvantage because now I'm the guy that looks like I'm fucking up all the time? And then, excuse my language, and then this other person is always blaming other people. Am I making a bad choice by living out that culture that I believe in of ownership?
Well, I think if we're having multiple negative outcomes, that might be necessitating a self-review of, okay, why are we having multiple bad outcomes? However, I think that when, hopefully you're not messing up every day.
Right.
But when we do mess up, I think it allows, and we say, hey, I did this, I messed up. This is why, or even maybe adding us some context and saying, hey, this is why I tried this and this is why it failed. That allows for our teams, and I'm a big team guy. So if you work on my team, you work on my team. If you row on my team, you row on my team. Teams all over. But I think that if we are going to allow them some grace and hopefully they develop, we need to take those opportunities to go, you know what, failure's a data point and I messed this up, but the responsibility is also on us and our other teammates is when we make those mistakes or when things don't go wrong or when we don't win the race or whatever, and winning's special. Anytime you succeed, it's special, and we should celebrate that because we're all not going to get nobody makes 100% of shots and things like that. So we have to assume that there's going to be failure. But if we act like everything's perfect, everybody else is assuming that we're holding them to this particular standard and they're either going to try to get it and they're going to fail and they're going to not tell anybody.
Right.
Or they're not even going to try.
That's right.
Which both of them I think are bigger negative outcomes than for them to go, you know what, I tried it and it didn't work. Not failure, but it didn't work. But these are the things I learned. And next time I'm going to get that extra 10%. And so, but we have to do that too as leaders. Okay. Right. Because all of us need to develop. All of us need to try. All of us
Yes.
need to kind of reach and stretch. And we need to share when we don't get that. And so I don't think we're putting ourselves at a competitive disadvantage, nor is it in a weaker perception to the team when we say, you know what, I tried this to get the team 10% better, or for me to get 10% better, or for me to make a bigger sale, or for me to get the team a little bit faster. Didn't work. But these are and this is, I think, is really key. This is what we learned.
Right.
And now we've taken this calculated risk, didn't work out. Great. These are the things we learned. Let's apply it and find maybe that 5% of the 10. And on the water rowing, 1% is roughly 4 seconds at the finish line. And I told the group of students I was speaking to last night, I'll take 1% every single day of the week, twice
Absolutely.
on Sunday.
Absolutely.
Like 1%, 4 seconds. That's almost a length of a of a 60-foot rowing shell at the finish line. Right. And there are numerous races. Yeah. In fact, one flashes back in my mind. It's like literally, I won't call it post-traumatic stress, but it's definitely a flashback. But I would have loved 1%, 4 seconds at that finish line, because we were racing Florida Tech at Dadvales, which is a huge regatta in Philadelphia. Literally, we hit the finish line. It was beep, beep. And me and the Florida Tech coach were standing right there. Casey Baker and I were standing right there. And both of us looked at each other. We're like, we had no idea who won. We literally could not. And my squad was about that much on the wrong side of the result. And, but it was a great race.
Right.
Like, I will never forget that race. But 1%.
I mean, just do the math, right? Take 1.01 and, to the power of 100, you're almost 3 times better, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like my dad used to say baby steps, baby steps.
Small
right?
wins, huge outcomes.
That's right.
Keep investing.
That's right. So there, you see, now I have the pause. Tell me about the places where one of the team members just broke down and they hit their rock bottom.
Mm-hmm.
And how do you help a person kind of get out of that hole and keep going?
I'm not going to name them, but Please they will know exactly who they are when they see this.
Please don't.
We were at a regatta, and she had come over from another team in our athletic department to start rowing with us. So in rowing, there's what we call catching a crab. And basically what happens at that point is the oar hydrodynamically gets stuck in the water. You're pulling through. I mean, the boat's moving. All 8 women are moving together. I mean, it is a ballet of motion when it's done well. It is beautiful. But any number of things can throw you off. She caught a crab. We were leading the race. We ended up out of the medals. And literally here she comes to the dock. And I mean, she is an emotional bomb, has absolutely leveled her. Like, she is absolutely distraught, gone to pieces, like, and if I recall correctly, it was her first year rowing. And, but, she felt she let the school down, the team down, me down, herself down. Like, I mean, literally, like negativity all the way around, and we, at that point, there is the worst thing we can do is to either blame, find fault, and at that point, it's literally, for me, it's like, hey, I'm sure I didn't say it this way, but this is what I wanted to communicate to them, is I still respect you, still love you, still want you on our team. You are important. And you took 199 great strokes out of 200. And so, But the thing also is to pull them aside and have, that conversation, allow them to be who they are. If there's crying and rowing,
Right.
Great. Why? Because we're passionate,
right.
We cared. So, and I've seen it in business world, where something didn't go wrong. Everything else lined up, 199 great strokes,
right.
One bad stroke.
Right.
And literally, takes the boat, turns it sideways. We have to be compassionate. We have to be, we again have to go back and go, okay, put ourselves in their shoes, be empathetic, and know that, when we have these failures, probably maybe a smidge off color, but nobody wants to suck. If someone's doing something and they're showing up 40 hours a week, they don't want to stink at that. If somebody's showing up and they're rowing in a boat, they don't want to stink at that. They may not be the best at it, but if we're good coaches, we're good leaders, they're going to try their best to be their best. And they're going to work hard. And I heard this last week, they're going to try to work to be, they're going to try their best to be better, and that's what we want to be able to do, is to really, but we as leaders, we need to give them space to do that. And a piece of that is when that person hits their lowest, we have to reach down and say, and I won't even say that, we have to climb in the hole with them. We have to get down there and go, you know what, me and you, we're in this trench together, and we're both going to get out of it. And I, because it's, you see these graphics where somebody's reaching down to help pull somebody up, and that's a piece of it. Yes. But why not climb down there and help them climb up with them? That to me, that's a teammate, somebody who's not going to get, and it's a big philosophy of mine is never leave a person behind. And no matter what we're doing, and then, it could be out hiking, could be what we're doing in the boathouse, what we're doing at work. No one gets left behind. We need to care. And when they're at their lowest, we need to care even more, and get down in the trench with them.